All the time in baseball, we see guys with unlimited potential that never get close to reaching it. Or we have to watch our favorite superstars start to age out of the league and just not be the same guy that they used to be. But it's very rare that you see a superstar right in the middle of his prime just completely fall off. This is what makes Cody Bellinger's story so interesting, because this man went from an MVP to a couple years later being non-tendered. So we've got to look into what happened to Cody Bellinger, and is there a chance that he gets back to being the guy that he used to be? This is Smarter Baseball, where we deep dive into everything going on throughout Major League Baseball. If you like the content and want to support the channel, like the video, subscribe to the page, and turn on notifications. We are trying to blow past 500 subscribers and get this thing going as best as we can. And I want you to be a part of the foundation of this channel. It's honestly kind of hard to believe that Cody Bellinger is still only going into his age 27 season, because this man was the 2017 Rookie of the Year, a two-time All-Star, and won the MVP in 2019. But he was just non-tendered this offseason by the Dodgers and signed a one-year, $17.5 million contract with the Chicago Cubs. In 6 years in the major leagues, Bellinger's played in 745 games and holds a slash line of 248, 332, 487 for a 819 OPS, good for a 117 OPS plus and 116 WRC plus, and he's racked up 17.8 B-WAR and 17.3 F-WAR. He's arguably been a pretty good player so far. Bellinger's a pretty patient hitter up at the plate, even though he has the tendency to swing and miss a little bit, so he's gonna strike out about average, despite the fact that this dude gets on base, walking a ton because he's not up there chasing. Now, Bellinger has this swing and miss tendency because this dude's got some pretty insane pop in his bat. The ISO, home run percentage, some of these really jump out at you. And it's because he's gonna sacrifice the average and the BABIP and all of that stuff to try to just launch baseballs. And that's pretty much just what he does. His launch angle is insanely high because all this dude is trying to do is just pull the ball in the air. But now these career numbers are both taking into account the first half of his career, which was insanely productive, versus this second half that we'll get to. So let's first take a look at this insane MVP season that he put together in 2019. I mean, really just peak Bellinger. 2019, he played 156 games, slashing 305, 406, 629 for a 1.035 OPS. That was good for a 167 OPS plus, 161 WRC plus, because the dude hit 47 bombs and racked up 8.6 B-WAR and 7.7 F-WAR, which again, for WAR, 8 WAR is about an MVP season. His isolated power and home run percentage were both over double the MLB average of what it was in 2022, and his home runs per fly ball was triple. This guy was putting up insane power output. Now, he was the same pull-happy power hitter that we saw just launching the ball into the air, but this season he was making way more solid contact, and that resulted in a way higher line drive percentage, clearly what jumped his batting average up so much higher than it was throughout the rest of his career. And this was because we saw Cody Bellinger at his most patient, taking an insane amount of walks and cutting the strikeouts down, because while he still wasn't chasing, still wasn't swinging a ton, he was swinging even less, and that resulted in him whiffing way less. Now, 2020 was a weird, rough season for a lot of players. It was that for all of us, frankly, but don't take his numbers dropping down in that 60-game span too heavily. We did, however, though, see the end of this peak Cody Bellinger because of this 2020 playoffs. Now, there are maybe some reports that say that Bellinger might have already kind of had a banged up shoulder just from diving around and stuff throughout the years. But in the NLCS in 2020, he went to go do the hit your arm together thing celebration, and he popped his fucking shoulder out. So, like, don't be dumb when you're celebrating. I hate seeing players get hurt because they're celebrating. It's just stupid. Now, sometimes it does get lost in this that wasn't the only major injury that Bellinger dealt with in a pretty short amount of time, too. Because on April 6, 2021, he collided with A's pitcher Raymond Guduan and suffered a hairline fracture in his left fibula. Then that September, he collided with Gavin Lux and fractured his frickin' rib. Now, having injuries to one of your shoulders, your drive leg, and your ribs kind of make it difficult to keep swinging a baseball bat very effectively. So it's not really a huge surprise that 2021 and 2022, Bellinger's numbers have just taken a dive. Now, okay, so you would expect a player's numbers to drop down a little bit when they're dealing with and then coming back from injuries, right? But Bellinger's fall has been insane to watch. 239 games over the last 2 seasons, he slashed 193, 256, 355 for a 611 OPS with 29 home runs, a 64 OPS plus, and 69 WRC plus. Baseball Reference WAR has him actually costing the Dodgers over that time, and Fangraphs says he's barely above replacement level. Offensively, one of the parts of his game that he definitely hasn't lost is still that power, but it's nowhere near the levels that we're used to seeing from him, dropping down to basically everything being a little bit above average. And he's almost just become a caricature version of himself, jumping the launch angle up even more to almost double that of the major league average, and just hitting the ball way more in the air, but not in a good way. One of the more patient hitters has become about the opposite of that, jumping his chase percentage up a ton, swinging way more and back to his whiffing ways because he wants to start striking out now, I guess, and not walk anymore. So going from this peak version of Bellinger to the player that we have now, it's pretty apparent that mainly this launch angle has just gone up to the point where he's not hitting solid fly balls anymore. They're pretty much just pop-ups. And that's because he's being way too overly aggressive at the plate now. He was one of the more patient hitters, but now he's up there swinging earlier, swinging more often. And for a guy that has this swing and miss tendency, you want to limit the amount of times that you're swinging so that doesn't be as big of a problem. When you just start swinging a ton, then you're gonna miss a lot. Now, while he struggled offensively, let's look at his advanced defensive stats on Fangraphs from this last season, where out of 30 center fielders that played at least 500 innings, he was anywhere from a middle average type of center fielder to a pretty good one, about top 10. And his Baseball Savant percentile ratings pretty much show where he's at this point, where he does still have that pop in there. He can barrel the ball up, but he's just not hitting the ball very well because he can't do it consistently when he has such a terrible approach at the plate going on right now. He's still got that pretty good sprint speed, and Baseball Savant has him as a pretty damn good fielder out there. Now, the consensus on Bellinger at this point seems to be that this is a reclamation project for the Cubs. I mean, he's still only 27, he's a former MVP, but his struggles are pretty apparent. At this point, he's still gonna give you a good amount of value as a fielder out in center field. But the big thing for him is offensively, and that potential of getting back to what he used to be is gonna drive up his price point more than what you would normally pay just for a defensive center fielder. So can he get back to that same hitter that he used to be? I think the main thing that jumps out here is to see a guy that was so patient now just be overly aggressive, swinging so often. He needs to get back to that patience. When he was the most patient, that's when we saw the best version of Bellinger. Him being aggressive is not working out for him. Now, maybe that's just something mental, and that's something that he can just work to get back to. But if it's something with the swing then, to where he maybe feels he has to take a different approach offensively, that's where we start running into either, all right, well then is it a mechanical adjustment that he can make back to get back to that former swing that he had and was so comfortable with? Or is it something that is forever changed now because these injuries affected it? A lot of people point to that shoulder injury as the beginning of the end for Cody Bellinger, and that very well may be the case. If that shoulder's not what it was and it's affecting the arms through that swing path, his swing's not gonna be what it was. But that left fibula fracture could also be doing the same thing. If he can't drive off of that leg as effectively, if it's not quite as stable, his swing's gonna suffer just the same. So now comment down below, what do you think is going on with Cody Bellinger, and can he bounce back? Is it something mental? Is it something mechanical with the swing? Or is it just these injuries have piled up enough to where we might not see the same guy that we've seen before from him? As always, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to support the channel, drop a like, subscribe to the page, and turn on notifications so that we can keep growing this channel together. You can support on socials, links are in the description, and I hope you have an awesome day. Thanks again for watching and supporting the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.